Hello everyone, I'm Colin Cannett. Today we're going to look at 5 tips and tricks for gluing. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I invite you to do that. Click the little notification bell right next to it, and let's get on with the first gluing trick. One of the problems that can happen when you're gluing is sometimes you'll get a stain on your wood, and the reason for that is the glue will often react with the iron in the bars and create this stain. And that stain, what that stain is, it's actually a reaction between the tannin in the wood and the iron bars. And the best way to solve that is to coat your bars very quickly. And I just use this plastic film material. I use it for lots of things in the shop. All you need to do is cut a strip like that. You don't need to coat the whole bar. You only need to put it where the joint is going to be. And it doesn't need to be, you don't need to use tons of it. It's only to cover the bar where the glue might be. So in this case, where these two boards would come together, that's the only place you would need to put that tape. And now when you glue that up, the glue is isolated from the iron bars and you're not going to get those black stains on there. One of the challenges we all have is removing the glue after a joint's been glued, and I still think one of the best ways is to use a damp cloth and wipe it off, wipe it thoroughly off, and then do a light sanding after. But if you don't, if you leave it till it dries and it's hard, these carpenter's type glues, the yellow type glues, they can be a little bit of a challenge to get off sometimes. The method that I don't like is using an old chisel, a sharp chisel, and scraping it off this way. And I'll tell you why, and I've had it happen to me several times, is when you're taking the glue off, sometimes a little bit of that glue, depending on how the grain is sitting, it will lift a little piece of wood, and as you keep on going, now all of a sudden you've lifted up a chunk of wood that's attached to the glue because it's such a strong bond, and now you've got a hole where the wood would have normally been because it's lifted the wood right off. The best way I've found of getting glue off is to just use a paint scraper, but you want to make sure that you use a sharp one. And when you pull like this, you're actually scraping the wood a little bit so it gets right down to the joint, and that way you make sure that you get all of the glue off and it doesn't lift the grain because of the way the angle is of this cutter. It's not going to be digging in like this kind of a device would. So use a scraper to get the glue off, and I think you'll have much better success. If you've been following my channel for a while, you'll know that I've often mentioned that when you try and glue end grain to end grain, it just doesn't work very well. And it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't work that well. But you've seen me use 2-part epoxy, and this is one alternative. You mix the two of these together in equal parts and coat both surfaces, let it sit for 5 minutes, and it gives you a very good bond. But not everybody has that on hand. You can use your carpenter's glue, and the way that you do that is you coat the surfaces that you're going to glue together, and you put it on fairly thick so that it soaks in a little bit both sides, and then you let it sit for about 10 or 15 minutes, and that's the key. Then when after it's sat for 10 or 15 minutes, you put another coat on over top of that on each side, a light coat, and then put them together and do some light clamping on that, and you will be astounded how well that works. It's a very good alternative, and if you have to glue end grain to end grain, that's one way that you can get some level of success. One of the things when you're doing glue-ups and you're doing some pre-finishing, which I highly recommend, you never want to get any of your finishing material inside rabbets or dados because it interrupts the the bonding process of your glue, and it just brings into question how well the glue bonds. The best way to fix that, just use some tape, and I'm just using a piece of it here, but you run tape all the way along, and I like to do the vertical pieces first, and you can actually see the seam there, because now I can finish right up to that tape on the outside and get a nice crisp finish. You can also do the inside, put tape on the inside, and I do that as well, so that we make sure we don't get any finish on the inside. And in fact, because this is going to sit on that, I'll actually mark my wood on the outside as well, and I'll run tape on the outside of that as well, so that I make sure that I don't get finish on that, so that when I do come to gluing, I'm going to make sure that the glue is going to be bonding wood to wood and get a good strong bond in there. From time to time, I have to glue up pieces, similar pieces like this. Maybe it's for legs or something like that. And of course, when you put glue on all of these parts, it's very hard to keep them aligned. They all want to slide around. The way to solve that is to put your glue on all of the surfaces just the way you would. Let them slide around the way they want to. Just take any sort of a flat material like that and just hold it like that. Then before you do the clamping, put an air nail in each end, and now they're absolutely stable, they're flat, and the glue is not going to move around. So now you can clamp them and they'll come out just perfect. Well, that concludes my video for today. Just a few of the tips and tricks that I use in my workshop, and maybe some of them will be useful to you. I'm Colin Canet for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.